So here's how we went from 0 to Scotland. What? Last June, we moved aboard our 36-foot sailboat Delfino. A week later, we sailed up to Scotland and spent the summer exploring the Highlands and Islands. We were, and still are, total novices to full-time liveaboards, and we hadn't sailed in the UK before, so we had a lot to learn.
So, today we're going to run you through most of the tools that we used to plan out and kind of execute on our summer in Scotland. A lot of these we picked up on the way, some of them we knew about from before, but all in all, I think we wouldn't have really been able to do it safely or had as much fun if we didn't have these tools and we used them in the right way.
If you have any other tips and tricks or any other tools that we don't mention in this video, please leave them in the comments down below to help other people who might be searching for similar information as they plan their own seasons.
So we're going to talk about this video in 4 different sections. The first section is...
Oh, right, okay.
What is the first section, Laura?
So, step 1, decide where we want to go.
Step 2, making sure that the boat is set up to do what we want to do.
Step 3, plan our specific route once we were cruising and pick our anchorages for the night and work out exactly where we were going to stop once we were up in Scotland.
And step 4, have fun. What tools did we use to actually get out there and see the places that we wanted to go see?
I'd written step 4 as constant weather vigilance.
But step 5 is have fun then.
Yes, step
5 is have fun.
So, step 1 was deciding where we were going to cruise. We settled on Scotland for our first summer because it's an area we've been to before and absolutely loved and wanted to see more of. And we were super excited to head up to the more remote parts of Scotland. Delfino is a Marlow, a Swedish yacht, and she's therefore really well suited for northern latitude sailing. She's well insulated, she has a heater, her rigging can withstand anything that Scottish summer can throw at her by and large. So once we'd settled on Scotland, I needed to plan a rough route around Scotland for us. I used the Cruising Scotland book, which we don't have on board anymore, but I'll insert a picture here, which is why Stu's moved to give you this lovely clear space that I can put it into, which was super helpful for general route planning. It doesn't have any of the detailed anchorage information, but it does have information on which are nice towns, where you might want to go to. It basically covers everywhere that you could sail to in Scotland, and it gave us a really good overview of all the different places that we could go to and start thinking about which specific towns or anchorages we might want to visit. And then I used Notion, which is an online note-taking, sort of database building website, to map out where we were going to be and build ourselves a little bit of a calendar and start writing notes on each of the different places and building out sort of a Wikipedia of all the different places that we might want to go to.
Laura's Notion is really intense, just putting that out there.
I might make the template available to share at a future point in time because it was super duper helpful for us. And then the last tool that I used while I was at home planning was the Navionics web viewer, where you can view the charts that are available on Navionics on your laptop, so that I could get a rough idea of the distances between each of the places that we were going to visit and see if our overall plan was achievable. And I thought it was. Plan A was much more ambitious than what we actually ended up doing. I don't think that was achievable in the end, but we were broadly right.
Step 2, how did we set the boat up to do what we wanted to do? We've obviously watched a ton of YouTube videos, and I erroneously thought that that would get us most of the way there. Turns out there's a ton of other knowledge that you need, and a lot of the specific nuts and bolts that you really have to learn, right? Learning the ropes. The first resource that I found really invaluable was Nigel Calder's Bible, the Boat Owner's Mechanical and Electrical Manual, I think it's called. This book is fantastic. I mean, it really covers most of the key bits, from maintaining the engine to how to deal with water tanks, plumbing, electrics, all of these various different skills. It talks about doing things from scratch. It talks about best practice. Nigel is pretty opinionated in it, which I like because he explains his opinions. You really get the sense that if you follow what he says, you'll end up with a pretty robust boat. The second key resource that I used is a website called Attainable Adventure Cruising. They're a couple, John and Phyllis. I think I saw them because they were recommended by John Kretschmer, another big name in the long-distance cruising community. They sail this boat, 54-foot boat called Morgan's Cloud, and they've got an amazing blog. It has individual books that break down their techniques and the skills, their thought processes, across all of the key areas. Not just how to anchor, let's say, but how to set up the anchoring system to handle really remote or really difficult to handle anchorages. More than anything else, the thought processes described in that blog helped me feel confident going to Scotland. Worth mentioning that you do have to pay for this, but in my opinion, it's well worth it. It's almost a kind of insurance, right? It's helping keep yourself and your boat safe, and so it's worth every penny. One area that has become increasingly useful as the year has gone by actually is ChatGPT. These AI tools are amazing, both for understanding how to solve basic problems. I used it, for instance, to help me figure out how to get a stripped screw out of the mast, to breaking down really confusing product numbers and what the different parts of the product name mean. Really, it's been a bit of a game changer, to be honest.
I'm back. It's step 3, the specific route planning. So once we were up in Scotland, we needed to decide exactly where we were going to sail and where we were going to anchor each night and what marinas we were going to go into. I'll say this right off the bat, we are not a paper chart boat. We haven't touched paper charts since we did our day skipper. We have very, very little experience using paper charts, and we are much, much more comfortable using GPS and online charts. You've done it in your Yachtmaster theory, but we've never really used them in the real world. We have multiple different devices that can run GPS independently from the boat systems, and we always have battery packs ready to go so that if something were to happen and all the boat systems were to go dark and we had zero power, we would still be able to charge up our tablets and phones. And we know all of the pitfalls that can come from using the electronic charts. We always make sure we zoom all the way in and check everything around us, for example, and we never place too much reliance on exactly where the GPS fix is showing us. But I'm sure somebody's still going to come for me in the comments, but we are not a paper chart boat. We don't have any on board. That said, we do still use paper pilot books and cruising guides. We found the Clyde Cruising Club sailing directions completely invaluable while we were up in Scotland. We used 3 of the volumes covering from where we started all the way up to the Outer Hebrides. The amount of information in those books and the detail in the little charts for the marinas was super, super helpful, and particularly as we got north of Ardnamurchan Point and services became fewer and further between, they were really helpful to tell us where had electricity and where we could find marinas that we could plug into. Obviously we also used Navionics and Navily and Savvy Navi to find as much information online as we could. I imagine everyone's pretty familiar with those, so I won't go super in depth on those ones. And then the final kind of electronic chart that we used was the Antares charts. These are a group of charts that are put together by a group of enthusiasts with depth sounders who do really, really detailed depth sounding charts of many of the locks in Scotland, and they became our primary source of information when we were going into a new lock and anchoring. We found them to be much more reliable than our chart plotter or the Navionics charts. We never had an issue with them, and we really enjoyed their little comments on the top of each chart about what particular anchorage was like, whether it was nice or not, and whether it was to be avoided. You have to download a separate app onto your phone or a tablet to use them, and they cost about £10, but they were worth their weight in gold. And we would recommend to everybody who's going up to Scotland to make sure that you've got those available on at least one device before you head up. And then finally we used Reed's Almanac and a tidal atlas to make sure that we were timing our tides correctly and knew where the different streams and ebbs and all of that kind of stuff would impact us. There are some really fierce tides up in Scotland. We underestimated quite how much tidal information we would need. We thought that we would be okay with the pilot books and the Reed's Almanac, but we really needed a tidal atlas as well, and we ended up having to take pictures of one from a boat next to us. So I think both of us would solidly recommend getting the appropriate tidal atlas before you go up.
So step 4, constant weather vigilance, which is a very appropriately named section. We largely used Windy, which is a great application. One of the things that's great about it is that you can check the different forecasts. In particular, I tended to look at the European model, ECMWF, for kind of the big picture, and the UK model from the UK Met Office, UKV I think it's called, for more of the detailed micro weather. So, for instance, UKV is much better at handling weather shadows or wind shadows caused by mountains. So, but I used Windy quite a bit throughout the summer, particularly for the passages up and down the Irish Sea. We used Predict Wind offshore, less for the route planning, which is often what it's used for, but more so that we could get an understanding for how the weather was changing and what conditions we were likely to see as we were going through the passage. Whilst we did have Starlink, we were conserving power quite a bit, so we were only turning it on for short periods, and it was nice to be able to download the grids and have access to those forecasts for the next few hours. So, onto the fun stuff. Laura and I did a number of different hikes over the summer, which was really fun. Really enjoyed it. Hope you guys enjoyed seeing us do those too. We kind of used two primary places to organize and to plan those hikes. The first is Walk Highlands. Walk Highlands is an amazing website. It's got almost all of the really good walks that you can do across the Scottish Highlands. It tells you the length, it tells you the difficulty, it tells you elevation, it gives you a bog factor. I mean, come on, how great is that? It tells you how boggy your walk is going to be. It also has a step-by-step written description of the walk with a map, and they've got a great map to let you discover routes that are in your area. So overall, Walk Highlands, amazing job. I absolutely think they're great. What we'd often then do is use OS maps as well. It's released by Ordnance Survey. Ordnance Survey maps have great topographical maps of the UK, including many of the walks. Sometimes the paths aren't very accurate on the map, so you need to take them with a pinch of salt. But overall, they're excellent. It shows you your elevation gain and everything.
The final thing that we haven't mentioned is that we also use YouTube to do a lot of research on where we're going. So we also watched a lot of videos from people who were sailing in similar areas to where we were going to go, so that we could get an idea of what it was like, where was worth going and where wasn't, and just kind of see whether we would enjoy going up to Scotland. So if that sounds like something you might want to check out, there's a load of videos on this channel ready and waiting for you. And I hope you find them helpful. Right, so there you have it, all the tools that we used to plan our Scottish sailing adventure for last summer. Well, thank you for watching, and I hope that was helpful.